Picture this: your footsteps echo across marble floors, worn smooth by centuries, sunlight streaming through open courtyards to illuminate walls adorned with vibrant mosaics. You're standing in the heart of a Roman villa, a masterpiece of luxury and ingenuity, where every corner holds a secret waiting to be uncovered. These weren't just homes, they were statements of power, artistry, and sophistication, designed to dazzle and inspire. Today, we're stepping into 32 of the most breathtaking villas from ancient Rome, each one a testament to the opulence and creativity of a civilization that shaped the world. What made these villas so extraordinary? It wasn't just the gold or the grandeur, it was the hidden details, the clever innovations, and the stories etched into every tile and fresco. Imagine heated floors that kept toes warm in winter, intricate mosaics that captured myths and daily life with equal brilliance, and sprawling country estates where emperors and elites escaped the chaos of the city. These villas were more than just dwellings, they were microcosms of Roman culture, reflecting everything from engineering prowess to artistic ambition. And here's the fascinating part: many of their features still influence architecture and design today. But this journey isn't just about admiring beauty, it's about unlocking the secrets behind it. How did they build these marvels without modern technology? What hidden symbols lie beneath the surface of those stunning mosaics? And what can these villas teach us about the people who lived in them? As we explore these 32 architectural wonders, you'll discover the surprising ingenuity behind their creation, the cultural rituals that brought them to life, and the legacy they left behind. So let's wander through these halls together, where every room has a story, and every detail reveals something extraordinary about the world of ancient Rome. The sheer scale of Roman villas alone would take your breath away, some sprawling over acres of land with multiple courtyards, gardens, and even private bath complexes. But what truly set them apart was how every element, from the towering columns to the tiniest mosaic tile, was designed with intention. These weren't just displays of wealth, they were carefully crafted stages where politics, art, and daily life intertwined. Take the villas of Pompeii, for example. Their preserved ruins reveal how even the layout of a home could communicate status. The grandest villas often placed the most impressive rooms right at the entrance, ensuring visitors were immediately awestruck before even stepping inside. And then there were the country estates, those vast retreats where Rome's elite escaped the noise of the city. Picture vineyards stretching to the horizon, private fish ponds stocked with exotic species, and terraced gardens designed to impress guests at every turn. These weren't just peaceful getaways, they were working farms, cultural hubs, and power centers all in one. The Villa of the Papary near Herculaneum, with its legendary library and breathtaking seaside views, shows how these estates blended productivity with pleasure. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect was how these villas borrowed from the cultures Rome conquered. Greek columns, Egyptian motifs, and even Persian-inspired gardens all found their way into Roman design, creating a visual melting pot of the ancient world. It wasn't just about showing off wealth, it was about demonstrating that Rome's reach extended far beyond its borders. Every fresco, every statue, every carefully placed window was a statement. And as we'll see in the villas ahead, these choices weren't random. They were calculated, deliberate, and sometimes even held hidden meanings that only the most discerning eyes would catch. These villas were far more than just luxurious retreats. They were the beating heart of Roman social and economic life. Imagine a powerful senator hosting a banquet under flickering lamplight, surrounded by guests debating politics while servants refilled cups with wine from his own vineyards. Every detail, from the imported marble floors to the frescoes depicting mythological scenes, reinforced his influence and connections. But beyond the glittering parties, these estates were also engines of commerce. The sprawling latifundia, or agricultural villas, produced olive oil, grain, and wine on an industrial scale, shipped across the empire to feed Rome's insatiable markets. What's fascinating is how these homes blurred the line between private and public life. A villa's atrium wasn't just a family gathering space, it was where clients lined up each morning to seek favors from their patron, a ritual that cemented social hierarchies. Even the gardens served dual purposes, serene spaces for philosophical discussions, yet also living advertisements of the owner's ability to control nature with elaborate fountains and rare plants. The Villa of the Mysteries near Pompeii perfectly captures this duality, with its famous fresco cycle likely used for both private rituals and impressing influential visitors. And let's not forget the political theater these villas enabled. When Emperor Hadrian designed his sprawling villa at Tivoli, he didn't just want a peaceful escape. He recreated architectural wonders from across the empire, subtly reminding guests of Rome's global dominance. Similarly, country villas often doubled as strategic hubs where elites could forge alliances away from the prying eyes of the city. The way a villa was positioned, whether overlooking a busy trade route or nestled in secluded hills, spoke volumes about its owner's ambitions. Yet for all their grandeur, these homes also reveal intimate glimpses of daily life. The smaller coastal villas, like those at Stabii, show how even moderately wealthy Romans embraced villa culture, with modest but elegant spaces designed for leisure and sea breezes. It's this blend of the monumental and the personal that makes Roman villas so enduringly fascinating. They weren't just buildings, they were stages where the drama of Roman society played out, from the highest echelons of power to the quiet routines of family life. Now consider how all this purpose and prestige translated into physical form. The architectural innovations behind these villas weren't just about beauty, they solved real challenges, from climate control to social maneuvering. Picture a villa's carefully aligned windows, designed to catch summer breezes while blocking winter winds, or its underground hypocaust system pumping warm air through walls and floors. Every pillar, every corridor, every splash of color served both practical and symbolic ends. And as we'll see next, these engineering marvels were achieved without modern tools, relying instead on a mastery of materials and geometry that still inspires architects today. Stepping into a Roman villa was like entering a carefully choreographed dance of space and light. At its heart lay the atrium, an open-air courtyard where rainwater collected in a central impluvium, shimmering under the sky like a liquid mirror. This wasn't just architectural flair, it was climate control in action, cooling the air while providing a serene focal point for the home. From here, the villa unfolded in perfect symmetry, with rooms radiating outward like petals on a flower. Private quarters tucked away for seclusion, grand triclinium dining rooms positioned to catch the golden light of evening feasts, and baths placed to take advantage of natural warmth from the sun. Every choice was deliberate, blending beauty with purpose, but the real genius lay beneath the surface literally. Those famed hypocaust systems transformed living spaces with invisible luxury. Picture slaves tending furnaces in subterranean chambers, their heat rising through hollow pillars to warm marble floors to the perfect temperature. Meanwhile, intricate networks of lead pipes delivered fresh water to fountains, baths, and even private latrines, showcasing an engineering prowess that wouldn't be matched for centuries. The Villa Romana del Kaisale in Sicily takes this innovation further. its labyrinth of heated rooms and cascading water features proving that Roman comfort rivaled modern standards. What truly set these layouts apart was their dialogue with nature. Colonnaded peristyle gardens blurred the line between indoors and out, their manicured greenery framed by arched walkways. In coastal villas like those at Baiae, entire rooms were oriented to panoramic sea views, while country estates used terraced gardens to sculpt the landscape itself. This wasn't just architecture, it was a philosophy where human spaces harmonized with earth, sky, and water. And then there were the mosaics, those breathtaking canvases of stone and glass that turned floors into storytelling tapestries. From geometric patterns that dazzled the eye to intricate scenes of gods and gladiators, they were more than decoration. They were status symbols, private galleries, even political statements. The Villa of the Faun in Pompeii boasts the Alexander Mosaic, a sprawling masterpiece so detailed it captures the fear in a warhorse's eyes. But look closer, and you'll spot quieter marvels, tiny tesserae arranged to mimic shifting shadows or rippling water, proving that Roman artisans were masters of illusion. These floors weren't just walked upon, they were experienced. Imagine guests reclining for a banquet, their couches arranged to showcase a central mosaic of Bacchus, while flickering lamplight brought the god's revelry to life. Or consider how a villa owner might use mythological scenes to subtly align himself with heroic figures. Every tile was a choice, every color a calculation. Even the humblest corridors often featured playful designs, fish scales, knots, or inside jokes in mosaic form, revealing that Roman luxury had a sense of humor too. What emerges is a portrait of spaces designed for both spectacle and intimacy. Whether through the grandeur of a domed ceiling or the whimsy of a border pattern, these villas spoke a visual language that everyone from senators to servants could understand. And as we'll see next, that language reached its peak in the villa's most dazzling artistic feature, the frescoes that turned walls into windows to other worlds. The true magic of Roman mosaics wasn't just in their beauty, it was in their ability to freeze moments in time beneath the feet of those who walked over them. Imagine kneeling to trace the delicate tesserae of a hunting scene, each tiny cube of stone or glass placed with precision so exact that even after 2,000 years, the tension of the chase still feels alive. These weren't mere decorations, they were narratives in stone where a single floor could tell stories of gods, gladiators, or even the quiet humor of daily life. Take the famous Beware of the Dog mosaic from Pompeii, a playful warning rendered in bold black and white, proving that Romans appreciated wit as much as grandeur. What's astonishing is the sheer variety of materials they used. While some mosaics relied on local stones, the most lavish ones shimmered with imported treasures, lapis lazuli from Afghanistan, purple porphyry from Egypt, or even gold leaf glass tesserae that caught the light like liquid fire. The House of the Faun's Alexander mosaic alone used over 1 million pieces, some no larger than a grain of rice, to recreate the chaos of battle with cinematic detail. But beyond their visual impact, these materials were strategic. A villa owner might commission a mosaic with rare blue glass not just for its beauty, but to subtly remind guests of his far-reaching trade connections. The process itself was a marvel of patience and planning. Artisans began with detailed sketches, then layered mortar and tesserae in sections, working from the center outward to maintain symmetry. Some floors hid secret symbols, a dolphin for good luck, a labyrinth to ward off evil, while others played optical tricks, using shading and perspective to create the illusion of depth. In the Villa Romana del Kaisale, a mosaic of bikini-clad women exercising looks so vibrant, you'd swear the figures might spring to life. But perhaps the most poignant mosaics are the quieter ones. A baker's villa might feature wheat sheaves and milling tools, while a merchant's home could showcase ships laden with goods. These personal touches turn abstract history into something intimate, proof that behind every grand villa were real people with pride in their trades. And because mosaics were so durable, they've preserved voices otherwise lost to time. A mosaic in Ostia Antiquae shows a ship captain named Lucius Terentius Felix, his name etched proudly beside his vessel, ensuring he'd never be forgotten. The brilliance of these works lies in their duality. They were both art and armor, beautiful enough to inspire awe, yet tough enough to withstand centuries. Walking across them today, you're not just seeing history, you're stepping right into its tapestry, where every color, every pattern, every hidden symbol whispers secrets about the world that made them. Beneath the dazzling surfaces of Roman mosaics lay a secret language, one where every tesserae tile could whisper about philosophy, power, or even personal secrets. Take the recurring motif of Orpheus charming animals with his lyre. This wasn't just a pretty scene. It symbolized the Roman ideal of civilization taming chaos, a subtle nod to the villa owner's role as a bringer of order. Even seemingly abstract geometric patterns held meaning. Interlocking circles represented eternity, while labyrinth designs mirrored life's winding journey. Some of the most revealing mosaics were those tucked away in private quarters. A bedroom floor might feature Venus and Mars locked in embrace, not merely as decoration but as a blessing for marital harmony. Meanwhile, dining rooms often showcased riotous scenes of Bacchus, encouraging guests to revel, but also warning against excess through clever details. In one Pompeian triclinium, the god of wine grins while a tiny mouse nibbles at fallen grapes, a playful reminder that even indulgence has limits. Then there were the portraits, those startlingly personal mosaics that froze villa owners in time. Unlike the idealized statues of emperors, these faces often showed wrinkles, receding hairlines, even quirks like a crooked smile. The message was clear: this home belonged to someone real, someone who wanted to be remembered exactly as they were. At the Villa of the Mysteries, a woman's piercing gaze meets yours across 2 millennia, her identity still debated. Was she the owner's wife, a priestess, or perhaps both? Animals, too, carried coded meanings. Dolphins symbolized safe travels for merchants, while peacocks hinted at immortality with their supposedly incorruptible flesh. Even the humble rabbit, frequently depicted nibbling vines, wasn't just a rustic charm, it was a nod to fertility and abundance. The genius of these symbols lay in their layers. A guest might appreciate the surface beauty, while only the most learned would catch the deeper references to Homer or Plato. Perhaps most intriguing were the errors, seemingly clumsy elements that may have been intentional. A chipped tile in an otherwise perfect border, a face slightly off-center. Some scholars suggest these were deliberate humility flaws, acknowledging that only the gods could achieve true perfection. Other mosaics hid subversive messages. One villa near Naples embedded a tiny Christian fish symbol among pagan imagery decades before Christianity was tolerated, a quiet act of rebellion beneath the feet of unsuspecting visitors. These silent conversations in stone reveal how Romans saw their world, not as separate from art but woven through it. A geometric pattern wasn't just decoration, it echoed the order of the cosmos. A hunting scene wasn't merely sport, it spoke of man's dominion over nature. And when we piece together these symbols today, we're not just reconstructing images, we're decoding an entire worldview, one glittering fragment at a time. Now, let's follow the trail of those same mosaic tiles as they lead us to another Roman luxury, the baths. Just as mosaics blended art and meaning, these spaces fused hygiene with high society, engineering with indulgence, creating an experience that was about far more than getting clean. Stepping into a Roman bath wasn't just about getting clean. It was a sensory journey through carefully orchestrated luxury. The moment you entered the frigidarium, the cool plunge pool shocked your senses awake, its marble edges glistening under light filtering from high windows. From there, the path wound through the tepidarium, where the air warmed just enough to prepare your body for the star attraction, the coldarium. Here, steam curled around columns as heat radiated from hypocaust floors, their hidden furnaces manned by slaves who kept temperatures perfect. But the real magic lay in the details, the way bronze taps shaped like dolphins dispensed water, or how niches held fragrant oils for massages after your soak. Every element was designed to delight, from the mosaics underfoot depicting sea nymphs to the acoustics that made even whispered conversations carry like music. These baths were social hubs where deals were struck over strigal scrapings and alliances forged between dips in the pools. Senators might debate policy while servants circulated with trays of figs and honeyed wine, their laughter echoing off walls lined with imported yellow marble. The bath's layout encouraged this mingling, with arched alcoves offering semi-private spaces for conversation and grand central halls where the elite could see and be seen. At the Villa of the Papary, archaeologists found a bath complex with a rotating floor, possibly the ancient equivalent of a modern lazy river, proving that Romans never stopped innovating in the pursuit of pleasure. What's often overlooked is how these spaces catered to every sense. Attendants burned incense to mask the scent of sweat and oil, while hidden pipes carried away wastewater silently, maintaining the illusion of effortless luxury. The pools themselves were feats of engineering. Lead pipes fed by aqueducts kept water crystal clear, and some villas even had double-walled baths to maintain precise temperatures. In the Stabian baths of Pompeii, clever use of vents created natural air conditioning, proving that comfort was as important as opulence. But perhaps the most surprising feature was how baths doubled as art galleries. The walls of the coldarium in the Villa Adriana were once lined with gilded stucco and frescoes of mythological scenes that seemed to come alive in the steam. Even the changing rooms, or apoditeria, were far from utilitarian. Their cubbies for clothes often featured intricate carvings, and some had ceiling mosaics so guests could stargaze while disrobing. This wasn't just hygiene, it was theater where every Roman could play a part in the grand narrative of civilization. The true genius of these baths lies in their adaptability. In winter, the hypocaust system turned entire rooms into cozy retreats, while summer designs maximized cross breezes. Coastal villas like those at Baiae took it further, engineering tidal pools that mixed seawater with heated springs for therapeutic soaks. And let's not forget the ultimate flex. Private baths in elite villas sometimes included libraries or gymnasiums, turning a simple wash into an all-day affair of culture and exercise. What emerges is a portrait of spaces that blurred the line between utility and artistry. The baths weren't just rooms with water, they were microcosms of Roman values where engineering served beauty and cleanliness was inseparable from status. From the slave stoking the furnace to the senator reclining in the steam, every person in this chain participated in a ritual that defined what it meant to be Roman. And as we'll see next, this same blend of function and splendor extended to the villa's outdoor spaces, where gardens and groves became stages for nature itself to perform. The hypocaust system was nothing short of revolutionary, an ancient marvel of engineering that turned Roman villas into cozy sanctuaries against winter's chill. Picture this: beneath those intricate mosaic floors, a hidden labyrinth of brick pillars supported the surface, creating a hollow space where hot air from a wood-fired furnace could circulate freely. The heat didn't stop there. It traveled upward through terracotta pipes embedded in the walls, ensuring warmth radiated from every angle. This wasn't just warmth, it was uniform, enveloping comfort, a luxury most of Europe wouldn't experience again for over 1,000 years after Rome's fall. What's astonishing is the precision behind these systems. In grandiose villas like Pliny the Younger's Laurentine estate, engineers designed adjustable flues to regulate temperatures room by room, much like modern thermostats. Some villas even featured dual furnaces, one for day use, another for night, to maintain perfect conditions around the clock. The craftsmanship was so refined that the floors never grew uncomfortably hot. The layers of mortar and tile distributed heat evenly, preventing scorching underfoot. And forget about stuffy air, clever venting ensured fresh oxygen flowed while smoke escaped through strategically placed chimneys. But the brilliance of hypocausts extended beyond mere comfort. These systems were status symbols, flaunting an owner's wealth and technical prowess. Maintaining them required a small army of slaves to tend fires and monitor temperatures, a labor-intensive display of extravagance. In colder provinces like Britannia, hypocausts became essential, transforming stone villas into warm havens amid frost-laden landscapes. The Roman baths at Bath, England, still showcase this ingenuity, where natural hot springs were channeled through hypocaust channels to amplify their warmth. The legacy of these systems lingers today. Modern radiant floor heating owes its roots to Roman innovation, with contemporary pipes merely replacing terracotta ducts. Even the concept of central heating distributing warmth from a single source was pioneered in these ancient villas. It's a testament to Roman practicality that they paired this technology with aesthetic splendor. Those beautifully tiled floors weren't just decorative, they were functional, acting as heat conductors that turned entire rooms into radiant canvases. Now imagine the hum of activity beneath a villa's polished surfaces, the crackle of fires, the rush of hot air through clay channels, the unseen labor that made such luxury possible. This harmony of engineering and comfort reveals a deeper truth about Roman society. Their greatest innovations weren't just about solving problems, but elevating daily life into an art form. And just as they mastered the flow of heat, the Romans wielded equal genius in harnessing another elemental force, water. From cascading fountains to gravity-fed aqueducts, their hydraulic systems turned villas into symphonies of liquid elegance, where every droplet served both beauty and purpose. Water in a Roman villa wasn't merely a resource, it was a living sculpture, an engineering marvel that danced through every corner of the home. Picture the first glimpse visitors would have, a courtyard fountain where water arced from the mouth of a marble lion, its gentle murmur setting the tone for the entire estate. These weren't just decorative flourishes, they were feats of precision. Aqueducts, often branching from municipal lines, fed private networks of lead pipes that snaked invisibly beneath floors and behind walls, delivering water to basins, baths, and even surprise features like hidden grottos where jets would suddenly spray unsuspecting guests. The Villa of the Quintilia outside Rome took this further with its own miniature aqueduct, a brazen display of wealth that ensured constant flow regardless of the city's supply. But the real artistry lay in how water played with light and sound. Reflecting pools doubled the grandeur of porticos, their surfaces mirroring frescoed ceilings to create the illusion of infinite space. Engineers designed fountains to cascade at specific angles, catching sunlight at golden hour to cast rainbows across triclinium dining couches. In the Villa Adriana, one fountain's bronze spout was tuned to produce a melodic trickle when filled, an ancient example of acoustic engineering meant to soothe as much as impress. Even practical features like cisterns became aesthetic statements. their interiors lined with waterproof mortar so finely polished that water seemed to float above shimmering blue tiles. The gardens took this harmony further, transforming water into theatre. Terraced villas like those at Prienest used gravity to create cascades that tumbled from level to level, each terrace offering a new vantage point to admire the liquid spectacle. Fish ponds stocked with exotic mullet or lampreys weren't just food sources, they were living art installations where guests could watch servants feed the fish by hand during banquets. And in coastal estates, engineers carved channels to let seawater mingle with freshwater pools, creating tidal displays that echoed the rhythms of the nearby ocean. What's often overlooked is how these systems required constant innovation. The Romans invented the reverse siphon to move water uphill without pumps, used sedimentation tanks to filter debris, and even calibrated pipe diameters to control pressure, techniques still foundational in modern plumbing. At the Villa Romana del Kaisale, archaeologists found a network of hidden sluice gates that allowed owners to redirect water on demand, turning a serene, reflecting pool into a DIY Chinese letter space for entertainers within minutes. Water's symbolic weight elevated these features beyond mere engineering. A villa's central fountain might depict Neptune not just as decor, but as a nod to the owner's naval victories, while a mosaic of river gods in the baths subtly linked the household to divine favor. Even the soundscape was deliberate. The absence of water noise in private quarters ensured restful sleep, while strategic placements near dining areas masked confidential conversations with its white noise. This mastery of hydraulic beauty reached its peak in the gardens, where water became the thread weaving nature and architecture into a single tapestry. Here, shaded walkways followed the serpentine paths of artificial streams, and marble benches were positioned where breezes off fountains would carry the scent of blooming violets. It was a reminder that for the Romans, luxury wasn't just about abundance, it was about harmony, where every element, no matter how functional, contributed to an overarching sense of balance and wonder. And just as water shaped these spaces, so too did the greenery it sustained. Beyond the splashing fountains and tranquil pools lay another world of cultivated beauty, the gardens, where meticulously arranged flora became extensions of the villa's artistry and the owner's prestige. The peristyle garden was where Roman architecture bowed gracefully to nature, creating spaces so harmonious they felt like outdoor rooms, enclosed by slender columns that framed the sky like a living painting. These gardens turned strolls into sensory journeys. Imagine the crunch of gravel underfoot as you wandered past bubbling fountains shaped like nymphs, their laughter like trickle mingling with the rustle of lemon trees. Every element was placed with intention. Statues of muses peered from ivy-covered niches, while hedges trimmed into geometric patterns echoed the villa's interior mosaics. This wasn't just greenery, it was theater where the actors were roses from Persia and night-blooming jasmine that perfumed the air at dusk. What made these gardens extraordinary was their dual purpose. By day, they served as open-air galleries where philosophers debated under shaded walkways, their words bouncing off polished marble benches. By night, they transformed into enchanted realms where oil lamps flickered between laurel bushes, casting dancing shadows across frescoed walls. The House of the Vetii in Pompeii offers a stunning example. Its central garden features bronze fountain statues so lifelike, guests could swear the Cupids were about to take flight. But the true genius lay in the sightlines. Pathways were deliberately aligned to create vanishing perspectives, making small spaces feel expansive. A visitor might turn a corner and suddenly confront a dramatic statue of Diana, her marble gaze following them through the greenery. These gardens also served as a living encyclopedia of Rome's conquests. Rare plants from across the empire, Egyptian lotus, Syrian figs, even saplings from sacred groves in Greece were cultivated like trophies. The more exotic the species, the clearer the message. This villa's owner commanded not just land, but the very forces of nature. Some estates even had rotating plant displays, changing blooms seasonally to ensure perpetual color. At Hadrian's villa, archaeologists uncovered a sunken garden where mechanical surprises awaited. Hidden pipes could drench unsuspecting guests with perfumed water, turning a quiet afternoon into playful spectacle. Yet beneath the beauty lay remarkable engineering. Those serene reflecting pools were actually intricate drainage systems, their overflow channels disguised by artfully placed reeds. Underground root systems were carefully contained in lead-lined planters to prevent damage to mosaic floors. Even the placement of fragrant herbs wasn't accidental. Lavender near seating areas deterred insects, while rosemary hedges along walkways released their scent when brushed against. This was nature perfected, every wild element meticulously curated to serve both pleasure and purpose. As the sun dipped below the colonnades, these gardens took on their most magical role, the backdrop for Rome's legendary feasts. Servants would drape flowering vines between columns, transforming walkways into perfumed tunnels leading to the triclinium. Here, amidst the glow of hanging lamps and the murmur of fountains, dining became an immersive performance where every course seemed to spring from the garden itself. A salad of edible flowers harvested that morning, figs still warm from the sun, fish that had swum in the villa's ponds at dawn. The boundary between cultivated nature and culinary art dissolved completely. This seamless blend of architecture and horticulture reveals a profound Roman belief that civilization didn't conquer nature but collaborated with it. The peristyle garden wasn't just an escape from the city's chaos. It was a miniature universe where order and wildness, art and ecology existed in perfect balance. And as we'll see next, this philosophy reached its zenith in the dining rooms adjoining these gardens, where every meal became an extravagant performance, blurring the lines between nourishment and theater. Crossing the threshold into a Roman triclinium was like stepping onto a stage where every detail conspired to dazzle. 3 low couches arranged in a U-shape faced a central serving area, their carved legs and plush cushions inviting guests to recline like aristocrats of old. But this wasn't casual lounging, it was a carefully choreographed social ballet. The prime spot, the locus consularis, went to the most honored guest, positioned where they could admire the room's finest frescoes while servants approached from just the right angle. Even the couches themselves whispered secrets. Those with citrus wood frames and Tyrian purple upholstery screamed wealth louder than any toga ever could. The meals unfolding here were symphonies of excess and symbolism. A typical feast might begin with sea urchins drizzled in garum, that pungent fermented fish sauce Romans adored, progress to roasted flamingo tongues, and climax with honey-drenched dormice, each course designed to shock and delight. But the food was just the opener. Between dishes, acrobats tumbled across mosaic floors, poets recited verses tailored to flatter the host, and musicians played lyres tuned to modes believed to aid digestion. At the Villa of the Mysteries, archaeologists found a triclinium where the frescoes' colors intensified when viewed by lamplight, turning dinner into a literal moving picture show as shadows danced across the walls. What's often overlooked is how these rooms weaponized decor. A mosaic of unswept floor trompe l'oeil bones and fruit peels so realistic guests might try to brush them away wasn't just artistic skill. It proclaimed, "We're so rich, we can afford to let food go to waste." Frescoes of Bacchus surrounded by panthers didn't merely set a festive mood. They linked the host to the god's divine indulgence. Even the serving ware played a role, glass cups from Alexandria, silver platters engraved with the host's achievements, and napkins so fine one emperor supposedly used them as sails for toy boats. The triclinium's architecture heightened the drama. Skylights positioned to moonlight during summer banquets, floors slightly sloped for easy cleaning between courses, and hidden service corridors allowing slaves to appear as if by magic. Some villas, like Pliny the Younger's, featured rotating ceiling panels that showered petals between courses, an ancient equivalent of a mic drop moment. The sensory overload was intentional, overwhelm guests with luxury, and they'd forget they were being strategically positioned near allies or potential rivals. Yet beneath the spectacle lay intricate etiquette. To recline improperly risked social ruin. Married women sat upright unless scandalously emancipated, while young men earned their couch privileges through coming-of-age rituals. The way one handled a snail fork or commented on the Falanian wine's vintage could cement reputations. These weren't just meals, they were high-stakes performances where every sip and gesture carried weight. As the last course was cleared and servants extinguished the oil lamps, guests would carry the triclinium's memories home, not just of the food, but of the calculated artistry surrounding it. The message was clear: in this villa, even a simple supper became legend. And just beyond those laughter-filled halls lay private quarters where the family shed their public personas, retreating to spaces designed not to impress, but to truly live. Beyond the raucous feasts and public displays of wealth lay the private quarters, sanctuaries where Rome's elite shed their polished personas and embraced quiet indulgence. These bedrooms weren't just places to sleep, they were cocoons of comfort where every texture and hue conspired to soothe. Picture walls draped in richly dyed wool hangings to muffle nighttime echoes, their deep purples and saffrons glowing in the amber light of terracotta oil lamps. Beds, often inlaid with ivory or bronze, boasted mattresses stuffed with anything from goose down for the ultra-wealthy to fragrant hay for more modest households, though even the latter might be sprinkled with lavender to aid relaxation. What set these rooms apart was their climate-conscious design. While summer sleeping spaces faced courtyards to catch cooling breezes, winter cubicula angled toward the sun's path, their small windows fitted with thin sheets of mica or glass to trap warmth. In frigid months, hypocaust heat radiated through floor mosaics depicting serene landscapes, a visual escape to match the physical comfort. The Villa of Papary at Oplontes showcases this perfectly, with a bedroom featuring delicate floral frescoes that would have bloomed year-round in the flickering lamplight. Privacy here was both physical and psychological. Unlike the open atrium, these chambers often had recessed alcoves or curtains that could be drawn for solitude. The wealthiest might even have separate dressing rooms where slaves would help them don the day's attire without disturbing a partner's rest. Personal artifacts found in these spaces: carved bone hairpins, tiny perfume bottles of cobalt glass, even wax tablets with late-night musings paint a portrait of Romans as individuals, not just historical caricatures. The real luxury lay in customization. A senator with literary pretensions might have Homeric verses painted above his bed, while a merchant's wife could commission frescoes of her hometown's coastline to stave off homesickness. Children's rooms, often overlooked in grand villas, reveal playful touches. One Pompeian nursery features cartoonish sketches of gladiators scratched into the plaster by tiny hands. Even the lighting was personalized. Adjustable lampstands allowed readers to direct beams onto scrolls without waking their bedmates. Now, follow the scent of papyrus and cedar to the villa's intellectual heart, the library. Here, scrolls rested in custom niches labeled with ivory tags, their cedar casings protecting precious texts from insects and humidity. The best libraries, like the one at the Villa of the Papary, boasted rotating reading stands and adjustable shelving to accommodate scrolls of varying lengths. Natural light was carefully calibrated. North-facing windows provided glare-free illumination for morning study, while bronze lamp clusters with reflectors extended reading hours into the night. These rooms doubled as power centers where owners dictated letters to scribes or debated philosophy with guests. The very architecture encouraged contemplation. Acoustic panels of wool and wood dampened echoes, while frescoes of the muses on the walls reminded visitors that wisdom and creativity were the ultimate status symbols. Some villas took this further. Pliny the Younger's library opened onto an inner garden, allowing the rustle of leaves to accompany scholarly pursuits. What emerges is a duality at the core of Roman luxury. Public spaces screamed wealth, but private quarters whispered individuality. Whether through a child's doodled walls or a scholar's meticulously organized scroll collection, these rooms remind us that behind the marble facades and political machinations, real people lived, dreamed, and sought comfort, much like we do today. The library of a Roman villa was more than just a room. It was a portal to other worlds, where the whispers of philosophers and poets seemed to linger between the scroll-lined shelves. Imagine running your fingers along the smooth cedarwood cases, each one protecting delicate papyrus scrolls labeled with ivory tags that gleamed like tiny moons in the lamplight. These collections weren't mere decorations. They were carefully curated reflections of the owner's mind. A general might display histories of military campaigns alongside treatises on siege engines, while a senator's shelves could groan under the weight of Cicero's speeches and Greek dramas. Even the arrangement held meaning. Scrolls placed at eye level signaled favored texts, while rare volumes like Egyptian medical treatises or Carthaginian agricultural manuals were locked in ornate cabinets, their very presence a flex of global connections. What made these spaces truly extraordinary was how they catered to the act of reading itself. Adjustable bronze lampstands pivoted to direct light onto unrolled scrolls without casting glare, while cushioned lecterns supported elbows during long study sessions. Some villas, like Pliny the Younger's, featured heated floors in their libraries, a luxury for winter evenings when the ink might otherwise freeze. But the real genius lay in the acoustics. Recessed niches absorbed echoes, and wool tapestries embroidered with geometric patterns dampened sound, creating a hush so profound you could hear the scratch of a scribe's stylus across the room. This wasn't just architecture, it was sensory engineering designed to sharpen focus and stir inspiration. The social role of these libraries often eclipsed their scholarly function. Here, amidst the scent of cedar and papyrus, powerful men dictated letters to enslaved secretaries, each word weighed for political nuance, or debated Stoic philosophy with visiting intellectuals. A well-stocked library was the ultimate status symbol in a society where literacy equaled power. The Villa of the Papary near Herculaneum took this to dizzying heights. Its collection of over 1,800 scrolls, including lost works by Epicurus, all meticulously organized by subject and author. But even modest villas boasted writing corners where family accounts were tallied or poetry composed, proving that intellectual aspiration wasn't confined to the elite. Now picture the library at dusk, when scholarly pursuits gave way to something more theatrical. As oil lamps flickered to life, these rooms often transformed into intimate performance spaces. A poet might recite verses composed that afternoon, his words bouncing off frescoes of the muses that seemed to lean closer in the dancing light. Some villas had hidden alcoves where musicians could play during readings, their lyres' notes drifting through the room like a second voice. This blend of learning and leisure was quintessentially Roman, a reminder that even their pursuit of knowledge was infused with artistry and flair. As the night deepened, the villa's focus would shift yet again. Scrolls were carefully rehoused in their cedar boxes, writing desks cleared of wax tablets, and the library's heavy doors shut with a whisper. But just beyond those doors, another world was waking up. The triclinium's couches were being rearranged, servants lighting perfumed torches along the garden paths, and somewhere a lyre player tuned his strings. For these villas were about to reveal their most dazzling role, not as havens of contemplation, but as stages for spectacle and revelry. The transition was seamless, as if the architects had designed the very walls to resonate differently by moonlight, trading the measured cadence of philosophy for the wild rhythm of celebration. When the sun dipped below the colonnades and torches flickered to life, Roman villas transformed into stages for private performances that would put modern dinner parties to shame. Tucked away from the public eye, intimate theaters with perfect acoustics hosted everything from Greek tragedies to scandalous satires, their semicircular seating ensuring every guest, whether senator or favored client, had an unobstructed view. But these weren't crude replicas of grand public amphitheaters. The theater at the Villa of Hadrian in Tivoli, for instance, was a masterpiece of miniaturization. Marble steps just wide enough for a select few, a stage framed by imported Cipollino columns, and a backdrop painted to mimic the owner's country estates. Here, the performance wasn't just on the stage, it was in the very act of hosting such an exclusive event. Music rooms offered a different kind of spectacle. Picture a vaulted chamber where water organs pumped by hidden slaves filled the air with haunting melodies, their bronze pipes tuned to complement the room's natural resonance. Walls inlaid with mother-of-pearl reflected lamplight onto gilded lyres and ivory flutes displayed like trophies. At the Villa of the Quintilii outside Rome, archaeologists found a performance space with a mosaic stage that subtly sloped downward, an ancient innovation that carried sound directly to the reclining audience. These weren't just concerts, they were immersive experiences where the architecture itself became an instrument. What's striking is how these spaces blurred the line between art and power. A poetry recital in your private Odeon wasn't merely entertainment, it was a flex, proving you could patronize the same poets who performed for emperors. Some villas even had rotating stages or trapdoors for dramatic reveals, like the one at the Villa of Mysteries where actors portraying underworld deities could materialize through smoke and mirrors. The message was clear: in this home, reality itself could be staged, yet beneath the glamour lay remarkable practicality. Those same theaters doubled as lecture halls for philosophical debates come morning, while music rooms often concealed storage for instruments and scrolls behind decorative panels. Even the seating was strategic. The best spots were reserved for those whose favor the host sought, while rivals might find themselves placed where sight lines were just slightly obstructed. Every element, from the choice of play to the angle of the seats, was a calculated move in Rome's endless social chess game. As the final notes of the water organ faded and guests rose to retire, another world was already humming to life behind the scenes. Beyond the gilded performance spaces lay the true engines of the villa, sprawling kitchens where enslaved chefs turned simple ingredients into edible theater, and storerooms stocked with amphorae from every corner of the empire. The transition from artistic fantasy to logistical reality was seamless, proving that Roman luxury wasn't just about spectacle, but the invisible machinery that made it all possible. While the glittering mosaics and frescoed halls captured all the attention, the true heartbeat of a Roman villa pulsed in its utilitarian spaces, rooms where efficiency and ingenuity met to sustain the lavish lifestyles above. Step into the storerooms and you'd find towering dolia, those massive earthenware jars half buried in the ground to keep grains at perfect temperatures, their thick walls preventing spoilage even in the height of summer. Each jar could hold hundreds of liters of olive oil, wine, or garum, the pungent fermented fish sauce Romans slathered on everything. What seems crude at first glance was actually sophisticated preservation. The ceramic's porosity allowed slight evaporation, creating a natural cooling effect that kept contents fresh. The kitchens, often tucked away to contain smoke and smells, were marvels of pragmatic design. Brick countertops with built-in braziers let cooks adjust heat levels on the fly, while overhead racks dried herbs and hung cured meats within easy reach. Archaeologists at the Villa Regina in Boscorial uncovered a kitchen with a rotating spit mechanism powered by heat rising from the fire, an early example of automation that freed slaves from constant basting. Bronze strainers with impossibly fine mesh, collapsible grills for portable feasting, and even adjustable height pastry tables reveal how Roman tools rival modern kitchen gadgets in ingenuity. What's striking is how these spaces mirrored the villa's social hierarchy. The main kitchen, with its marble-topped workstations and silver serving ware, catered to the family's meals, while a secondary kitchen prepared simpler fare for staff. Storerooms were equally stratified spices like Indian pepper and Syrian saffron locked in ivory inlaid caskets, while lentils and barley filled communal bins. Even the humble mortar and pestle came in tiers: volcanic basalt for grinding delicate spices, rough granite for pounding tough grains. The real genius lay in logistics. At rural estates like the Villa Pisanella, excavated grain mills and oil presses operated just steps from storage rooms, ensuring harvests moved swiftly from field to pantry. Amphorae were stacked in cellars with their contents and vintage painted clearly on the handles, an ancient barcode system. Some villas even had accounting offices where stewards tracked inventory on wax tablets, noting which olives came from which orchard or how much fish sauce remained before the next shipment from Spain. These unglamorous spaces tell a parallel story of Roman life, one where beauty and practicality weren't opposing forces but partners. The same culture that produced breathtaking mosaics also engineered storage jars with built-in measurement lines, and the architects who designed soaring atriums made sure smoke from the kitchens vented through hidden channels rather than choking diners. It's a reminder that for all their grandeur, Roman villas were fundamentally machines for living, where every cog from the sparkling triclinium to the soot-stained bread oven kept the whole system running smoothly. Now follow the scent of baking bread and pressed grapes as we leave the bustling household behind, venturing beyond the villa's walls to where the true scale of Roman ambition unfolds. The sprawling country estates that fed cities, financed politics, and redefined what it meant to harness nature. Roman country estates weren't just escapes, they were entire worlds unto themselves, where the rhythms of agriculture and leisure intertwined seamlessly. Imagine riding through cypress-lined avenues toward a sprawling villa nestled among vineyards, the air heavy with the scent of ripening grapes and the distant sound of slaves pruning olive trees. These weren't mere vacation homes. They were carefully curated landscapes where productivity and pleasure coexisted. Take Pliny the Younger's Laurentine villa, where a working farm supplied the kitchens while shaded walks offered ocean views, proof that practicality could be poetic. What set these retreats apart was their self-sufficiency. A single estate might encompass wheat fields, fish ponds stocked with prized mullet, and apiaries producing honey for both the table and medicinal salves. At the Villa of the Volusiae near Rome, archaeologists uncovered presses for olives and grapes just steps from a marble-lined bath complex, illustrating how industry and indulgence shared the same soil. Even hunting grounds served dual purposes. Boar and deer provided sport for guests but also filled larders with smoked meats. This wasn't just farming, it was theater, where landowners played the role of benevolent rulers over their miniature kingdoms. Distance from urban centers wasn't a drawback but a deliberate choice. The journey itself became part of the allure, traveling a full day from Rome's stinking streets to arrive at an oasis where the only sounds were cicadas and splashing fountains. Coastal villas like those at Baiae took this further, their seaside locations offering private beaches where elites could sunbathe away from plebeian eyes. The isolation also allowed for political maneuvering. Cicero famously used his country estates as neutral ground to broker deals away from the Senate's prying gaze. Architecturally, these villas adapted to their surroundings with remarkable sensitivity. In the cool hills of Tuscany, loggias faced south to capture winter sun, while Sicilian estates featured inner courtyards designed to funnel breezes. The Villa Romana del Kaisale showcases this regional flair. Its North African-inspired mosaics of exotic animals hinted at the owner's trans-Mediterranean connections while staying rooted in Sicilian stonework traditions. Yet the true genius of these estates lay in their illusions. Even the most productive farmland was disguised as pleasure gardens, vineyards artfully arranged to resemble natural slopes, orchards pruned to frame scenic vistas. A visitor might stroll through what appeared to be wilderness, only to stumble upon a hidden shrine or a grotto where chilled wine awaited. This delicate balance of rusticity and refinement became the ultimate status symbol, proving one could command nature without sacrificing elegance. As we peel back these layers, a fascinating pattern emerges. The farther a villa was from Rome, the more boldly it embraced local flavors. In southern Gaul, estates incorporated Celtic building techniques, while North African villas boasted mosaics of camels and date palms. These weren't mere aesthetic choices. They were quiet boasts of the owner's worldly reach, proving that even in retreat, Rome's elite remained citizens of an empire without borders. The Roman villa wasn't a one-size-fits-all blueprint. It was a chameleon, adapting brilliantly to the landscapes and cultures it encountered across the empire. In the misty hills of Britannia, villas like Lullingstone boasted thick hypocaust systems to combat the damp chill, their floors heated so thoroughly that even on the frostiest mornings, bare feet met only warmth. Yet step into the sunlight of North Africa, and you'd find villas like those at Volubilis, where soaring arches and open-air courtyards maximized shade and breeze, their walls adorned with mosaics of leopards and palm trees that celebrated local wildlife rather than Roman myths. This wasn't mere imitation. It was a dialogue between conquerors and conquered, where indigenous traditions reshaped Roman luxury as much as Rome imposed its tastes. The Greek East offered some of the most striking fusions. In Ephesus, villas seamlessly blended Roman grandeur with Greek elegance, peristyle courtyards framed by slender Ionic columns, their proportions refined to near mathematical perfection. Here, mosaics often depicted Homeric scenes rather than Roman triumphs, and libraries held equal prestige with banquet halls. Meanwhile, along the Rhine frontier, Germanic influences crept in. Villas like those near Trier incorporated timber framing techniques unfamiliar in the Mediterranean, their sturdy beams resisting northern winters while still sporting classic Roman frescoes inside. Even the pigments changed regionally. Greek villas favored vivid blues made from crushed lapis lazuli, while Spanish estates used local cinnabar for deep reds that shimmered like Iberian sunsets. Nowhere was this cultural alchemy more vivid than in Syria, where desert palaces like those at Palmyra merged Roman axial symmetry with Persian-inspired Iwan's vaulted halls open to lush interior gardens. The walls whispered in multiple languages, Latin formal inscriptions alongside Aramaic poetry, Greek philosophical quotes woven into geometric patterns that echoed Mesopotamian designs centuries old. These weren't just buildings, they were stone passports proving their owners moved fluidly between worlds. even construction materials told stories of adaptation. Britannia's villas relied on local flint and limestone, their rough textures hidden beneath smooth stucco painted to mimic prized Carrara marble. In Egypt's Fayum oasis, villas rose from mud brick but boasted imported porphyry thresholds, a symbolic nod to Roman power over Nile silt. And in Gaul, craftsmen incorporated Celtic metalworking techniques into door hinges and window grills, turning functional elements into intricate art. The true marvel, how these regional flavors traveled. A Syrian merchant might return from Antioch with a taste for shaded loggias, prompting his Campanian architect to redesign a seaside villa with Eastern flair. Or a British chieftain, freshly Romanized, could demand a mosaic of his native hunting dogs alongside traditional Roman griffins. This cross-pollination created villas that were neither wholly Roman nor entirely local, but something gloriously new, a testament to an empire that thrived not by erasing differences, but by weaving them into its fabric. Among these hybrids, certain villas stand as crowning achievements. The Villa of the Birds in Alexandria dazzles with its aviary mosaics, each species rendered with scientific precision by artists who likely studied in the city's legendary library. Up in Germania, the Villa Borg's vast baths used local basalt to retain heat better than Italian terracotta ever could. And at Spain's La Olmeda, the sprawling reception hall's mosaic, a vivid lion hunt, pairs Carthaginian motifs with Roman perspective tricks, creating a visual metaphor for cultures colliding and coexisting. What emerges is a portrait of an empire confident enough to borrow, pragmatic enough to adapt, and creative enough to make every variation feel distinctly Roman. Whether perched on Scottish cliffs or nestled in Libyan oases, these villas shared one unshakable trait: the ability to make anyone who crossed their thresholds feel simultaneously at the empire's heart and at home in their own corner of its vast, vibrant world. Buried under volcanic ash for centuries, the Villa of the Mysteries near Pompeii emerged as one of history's most tantalizing puzzles, a masterpiece frozen in time. Step into its once sealed rooms, and your gaze is immediately drawn to the walls, where life-sized figures seem to leap from vibrant red backgrounds in a continuous fresco known as the Mystery Frieze. This isn't just decoration. It's a cinematic narrative stretching over 30 feet, depicting a young woman's initiation into the Dionysian mysteries, a secretive cult that promised spiritual rebirth through ecstatic rites. The colors alone are a marvel: deep ochres, lapis blues, and a signature Pompeian red so vivid it looks freshly painted, preserved by the very disaster that erased the city. What makes these frescoes extraordinary isn't just their artistry, but their ambiguity. Is the central figure a bride undergoing a marital ritual or a devotee surrendering to divine possession? Why does one woman recoil in terror while another raises a ritual whip? Even the setting is debated. Some scholars argue the room was a private chapel, while others see a triclinium where guests dined under the watchful eyes of gods and mortals alike. The fresco's preservation is uncanny. Folds in the figures' garments cast shadows so precise you can almost hear the fabric rustle, and the whites of their eyes still gleam with emotion. It's as if the artists paused mid-brushstroke, leaving their work to be finished by time itself. Beyond the frieze, the villa whispers other secrets. One chamber features a mosaic of a theatrical mask, its mouth frozen in a scream, or is it laughter? Another room's floor bears a tiny, meticulous dog paw print pressed into the wet plaster 2 millennia ago, a fleeting moment of chaos captured in an otherwise perfect space. The layout itself hints at dual lives. Grand reception halls face the public road, while shadowed corridors lead to secluded quarters where the mysteries might have unfolded away from prying eyes. The villa's survival is a fluke of geology. When Vesuvius erupted, the building was shielded by a bizarre cushion of hot gas and ash that baked its frescoes into permanence rather than destroying them. Even the wooden doors, long since decayed, left ghostly voids in the volcanic material, allowing archaeologists to reconstruct their exact dimensions. This level of preservation offers something rare, not just a snapshot of Roman art, but of the people who lived with it. The indentations of a ladder leaned against a wall, the soot from oil lamps that lit midnight rituals. These are the traces of real lives intertwined with the villa's grandeur. Yet for all we've uncovered, the Villa of the Mysteries guards its deepest truths. Was it a home, a temple, or both? Did its owners commission the frescoes as devotion or decoration? The answers might lie in the villa's most overlooked feature, a modest shrine tucked away near the kitchens, where offerings of fruit and wine were placed not to Dionysus, but to the household's ancestral spirits. This intimate detail reminds us that even amidst the villa's spectacle, the Romans never forgot the quiet bonds between the living and the dead. Now, shift your gaze from Pompeii's enigmatic gem to a villa that wore its grandeur without disguise, Hadrian's sprawling retreat at Tivoli, where an emperor's imagination ran as wild as the empire itself. Hadrian's villa wasn't just a home, it was an empire in miniature, where the restless imagination of Rome's most well-traveled emperor took physical form. Spread across nearly 300 acres of the Tiburtine Hills, this sprawling complex wasn't designed to impress guests. It was built to satisfy one man's insatiable curiosity about the world he ruled. Picture wandering through the canopus, a breathtaking pool flanked by marble columns, its waters reflecting statues of Egyptian gods, Hadrian's homage to the Nile Valley he'd explored. Nearby, the Peristyle recreated Athens' star Poikile, its covered walkways offering shade for philosophical strolls, while the Tetro Maritimo's circular island, accessible only by wooden bridges, became the emperor's private retreat for contemplation. Every corner whispered of distant lands, not as conquered territories, but as sources of inspiration. The genius of Hadrian's villa lay in its duality, grand enough to host imperial business, yet intimate enough to indulge personal whims. The libraries, one for Greek texts and another for Latin, revealed his scholarly side, while the sprawling baths complex showcased engineering prowess with domed ceilings that mimicked the Pantheon's oculus. But look closer and you'd find playful touches, hidden grottos where water cascaded over shells, or the so-called maritime theater, a circular villa within, a villa where Hadrian could vanish from court life entirely. This wasn't just architecture, it was autobiography in stone, each structure a chapter from his travels. The Vale of Tempe evoked in a sunken garden, the Lyceum of Athens resurrected in a colonnaded gymnasium. What truly set this villa apart was its defiance of convention. While most Roman estates followed predictable layouts, Hadrian's sprawled organically across the landscape, its buildings angled to capture specific views or seasonal light. The Piazza d'Oro, with its undulating facade and reflecting pools, felt more like a surreal dreamscape than a formal courtyard. Even the materials broke tradition. Multicolored marble from Numidia, porphyry from Egypt, and translucent alabaster windows that turned sunlight into liquid gold. The message was clear. This emperor didn't just collect provinces, he absorbed their essence, remixing them into something uniquely his own. Yet beneath the fantasy lay remarkable practicality. The villa's 100 acres of underground service tunnels allowed slaves to move invisibly, ensuring banquets appeared by magic and fires were stoked without intrusion. Hydraulic systems fed fountains that danced without pumps, using gravity alone, while the sprawling cryptoporticus, a semi-subterranean gallery, kept residents cool in summer and warm in winter. Hadrian didn't just want beauty, he demanded it function flawlessly. Now, shift your gaze south to Sicily's Villa Romana del Kaisale, where an entirely different kind of opulence unfolded. Here, the floors themselves became canvases, covered in mosaics so vivid they seemed to pulse with life, a testament to the Roman obsession with turning even the ground beneath their feet into storytelling tapestries. Sicily's Villa Romana del Kaisale isn't just a villa. It's a kaleidoscope frozen in stone where every step reveals another masterpiece underfoot. The moment you enter, your eyes dart from scene to scene. Here, a chariot race so vivid you can almost hear the crowd roar. There, a hunting expedition where leopards spring from the foliage with terrifying realism. But the showstopper is undoubtedly the so-called bikini girls, a mosaic of athletic young women in two-piece garments that wouldn't look out of place on a modern beach, lifting dumbbells and tossing a discus with joyful energy. This isn't just art, it's a rare glimpse into Roman fitness culture, proving that wellness trends are anything but new. What makes these mosaics extraordinary is their storytelling ambition. Unlike the static mythological scenes common in other villas, here the floors burst with motion and personality. In one corridor, a child's chariot pulled by agitated geese careens wildly. The drivers face a comic mask of terror. Nearby, a fishing scene captures the Mediterranean's bounty octopuses tangled in nets, lobsters waving indignant claws, all rendered with such precision that marine biologists can identify each species. Even the geometric borders hum with life, their interlacing patterns mimicking the villa's own labyrinth of rooms and courtyards. Preservation plays its own starring role. Buried by a 12th century mudslide, the mosaics slept undisturbed until the 1950s, emerging with colors still luminous: the deep greens of Sicilian meadows, the azure blues of coastal waters, the rich ochres of local clay. The mud acted as a time capsule, protecting the tesserae from weathering and looters alike. Today, walking the raised walkways feels like floating over a Roman graphic novel, each panel perfectly preserved down to the tiniest details. The frayed rope of a fisherman's net, the sweat on a laborer's brow, even the individual feathers on a startled quail. Beyond spectacle, these floors whisper secrets about Sicilian identity under Roman rule. The villa's owner, likely a high-ranking official or wealthy merchant, flaunted both Roman sophistication and local pride. Greek myths appear alongside scenes of Sicilian agriculture. Hercules labors near mosaics of olive harvesting, linking divine heroism to the island's agrarian roots. Even the bikini athletes carry deeper meaning. Their outfits resemble ancient Greek gymnastic attire, a nod to Sicily's Hellenic heritage repackaged for Roman tastes. This was cultural fusion at its most dazzling, where every tile celebrated Sicily as a crossroads of empires. The villa's layout amplifies this storytelling genius. Mosaics progress thematically from public to private spaces, grand mythological tableaus in reception rooms, playful hunting scenes in dining areas, intimate floral patterns in bedrooms. One breathtaking transition occurs in the Great Hunt Corridor, where a mosaic of exotic animals being loaded onto ships, tigers, rhinos, even a giraffe, leads directly to a chamber depicting their triumphant arrival in Rome. It's a narrative in stone, guiding visitors through the empire's reach without a single word. Now, leave behind Sicily's vibrant floors for a different kind of treasure, the Villa of the Papary, where an entire library of ancient wisdom lay entombed in volcanic ash, waiting to share its secrets with the modern world. The Villa of the Papary is a time capsule of ancient intellect, frozen in a single catastrophic moment. Unlike Pompeii's bustling streets or Herculaneum's vivid frescoes, this villa's treasure lay hidden beneath layers of volcanic rock, a library of over 1,800 papyrus scrolls, carbonized by Vesuvius's pyroclastic surge, yet miraculously preserved. Picture the scene: shelves of meticulously labeled texts, their cedar cases reduced to ghostly imprints in the hardened ash, each scroll curled tight like a fist clenched around secrets. The villa itself was a scholar's paradise, perched on a cliff overlooking the Bay of Naples, where sea breezes carried the scent of salt and papyrus. Its colonnaded walkways, lined with bronze statues of philosophers, seemed to whisper that here, wisdom was the ultimate luxury. What makes these scrolls extraordinary isn't just their survival, but the painstaking modern efforts to read them. The volcanic heat left the papyri too brittle to unroll conventionally, but cutting-edge technology like X-ray phase contrast tomography now peels back layers without touching them. So far, deciphered fragments reveal lost works by Epicurus, philosophical treatises, and even early scientific musings texts that hadn't been seen since antiquity. One scroll, believed to discuss the senses, tantalizingly suggests the villa's owner may have been Philodemus, a philosopher whose writings bridged Greek and Roman thought. These aren't just old books, they're missing pieces of humanity's intellectual jigsaw. The villa's design reflects its purpose. Unlike grand entertainment-focused estates, its layout prioritized quiet contemplation. A secluded inner garden offered shade for reading, while the library's strategic placement near the ocean ensured natural light without harsh glare. Even the decor whispered erudition. Frescoes of muses held writing tablets, and mosaic borders featured geometric patterns resembling the grids used in scholarly diagrams. This was a space where every architectural choice served the life of the mind. Yet the villa of the papyri's greatest legacy may be its influence on later generations. When Renaissance architects like Palladio dreamed of classical perfection, they drew inspiration from its harmonious proportions. Centuries later, the Getty Museum in California recreated its layout down to the bronze statues, proving its allure endures. More profoundly, the villa's very existence challenges stereotypes of Roman decadence. Here was a place where power and philosophy coexisted, where an empire known for conquest also cherished contemplation. As we turn from Herculaneum's ashes to architecture's evolution, consider how these villas became blueprints for Western design. The Roman genius for blending form and function, spectacle and intimacy, would echo through Byzantine palaces, Renaissance villas, even modern museums. Their innovations, from hypocaust heating to axial symmetry, weren't lost to history but borrowed, adapted, and reinvented. The next time you stroll through a grand courtyard or admire a domed ceiling, you're walking in the footsteps of those ancient architects who first turned stone into poetry. The influence of Roman villas stretches far beyond antiquity, their architectural DNA woven into the grandest homes and palaces across centuries. When Renaissance architects like Andrea Palladio studied the ruins of Hadrian's villa, they didn't just see crumbling walls, they discovered a blueprint for harmony between nature and structure. Palladio's own villa Rotonda near Vicenza became a manifesto of this revival, its symmetrical wings and central dome echoing Roman ideals while adapting them to 16th century tastes. Even the white marble so beloved by Renaissance builders was a direct nod to the luminous travertine of imperial villas, proving that some aesthetics never lose their power to dazzle. Jump forward to the 18th century, and you'll find Roman villa principles reimagined in the grand country houses of England. Storehead's landscaped gardens, with their faux temples and carefully framed vistas, owe their theatrical beauty to Roman peristyle gardens, while the axial layouts of estates like Chatsworth mirror the procession of spaces in a Pompeian villa. The fascination wasn't merely aesthetic, it was philosophical. Just as Roman elites used villas to showcase their sophistication, European aristocrats flaunted their classical education through columns, friezes, and mosaics that whispered of Horace and Cicero. Fast forward to modern times, and the legacy grows even more intriguing. The Getty Villa in Los Angeles isn't just inspired by the Villa of the Papary. It's a near replica, complete with herb gardens straight from Pliny's descriptions. Contemporary architects still borrow Roman innovations. Open-air atriums in luxury homes channel ancient light wells, while radiant floor heating systems are direct descendants of hypocaust technology. Even the trend of indoor-outdoor living spaces traces back to those airy Roman porticos that blurred the boundaries between garden and gallery. What makes these designs timeless isn't just their beauty, but their adaptability. The Roman genius for crafting spaces that serve both spectacle and intimacy resonates in everything from neoclassical government buildings to minimalist villas on the Amalfi Coast. Their emphasis on axial symmetry creates instinctive comfort, while the interplay of light and shadow through colonnades teaches a masterclass in atmospheric design. It's no accident that when architects seek to convey permanence and prestige, they still reach for vocabulary invented 2,000 years ago. Vaulted ceilings, coffered domes, and reflecting pools that could have been lifted straight from a Tiberian country estate. Now imagine the thrill of uncovering these ancient marvels layer by layer. The same volcanic ash that entombed Pompeii's villas preserved them like time capsules, waiting for archaeologists to decipher their stories. Excavations aren't just about digging up the past, they're detective stories where every shard of fresco and fragment of pipe reveals how these spaces were lived in, loved, and lost. Unearthing a Roman villa is like peeling back the pages of a book where every layer holds a new chapter of history. Archaeologists don't just dig, they decode, carefully brushing away centuries of soil to reveal a world frozen in time. Picture a team on their knees in the golden light of dawn, their trowels scraping gently around the edge of a mosaic, each tiny tessero whispering secrets about the hands that laid it. These excavations are more than treasure hunts. They're acts of resurrection, piecing together lives from the fragments they left behind. A broken oil lamp, a child's toy, or a cookpot still stained with traces of ancient garum. What's astonishing is how much these ruins conceal beneath their surfaces. Ground-penetrating radar now lets archaeologists see through the earth, mapping entire villa layouts before a single shovel breaks ground. In England's Chedworth Villa, this technology revealed hidden bathhouses and drainage systems invisible to the naked eye, while in Spain's La Olmeda, radar detected a forgotten wing with mosaics so pristine they looked freshly set. Even the humblest artifacts speak volumes. A pile of oyster shells near a kitchen hints at lavish feasts, while a cluster of loom weights tells of enslaved women weaving textiles late into the night. The real magic happens in the labs. Microscopic analysis of plaster flakes can reconstruct original fresco colors down to the exact mineral pigments, Egyptian blue, cinnabar red, while soil sampling around latrines reveals ancient diets from millennia-old pollen and seed. At the Villa of the Papary, advanced imaging techniques are slowly unrolling carbonized scrolls without touching them, recovering philosophical texts thought lost forever. This isn't just preservation, it's time travel, using science to eavesdrop on dinner party conversations or trace a merchant's trade routes from amphory residues. Yet for all our technology, some of the most poignant discoveries come from sheer patience. In a Sussex villa, an archaeologist spent weeks reconstructing a shattered glass bowl, only to find a tiny thumbprint pressed into its base, the mark of a glassblower from 2,000 years ago. At Pompeii's Villa of the Mysteries, plaster casts of voids left by decomposed bodies capture the final moments of those who sought shelter in vain, their postures frozen in heart-wrenching detail. These finds remind us that archaeology isn't just about stones and mortar. It's about the people who laughed, loved, and dreamed within these walls. Now, turn your gaze to the unsung heroes of this story, the lesser-known villas that don't make headlines but are no less extraordinary. Take the Villa of the Antonines outside Rome, a sprawling imperial retreat where archaeologists recently uncovered a private amphitheater for Emperor Commodus to stage gladiator bouts. Or the Villa of the Birds in Alexandria, its floors alive with mosaics of parrots and peacocks so lifelike they seem ready to take flight. In Portugal's Torre de Palma, a 4th century villa yielded a mosaic of horses named Amator and Alumnus, their names etched proudly beside them, perhaps the beloved steeds of a wealthy landowner. Each of these sites adds a new verse to the song of Roman life. The Villa of the Columns in Libya boasts a peristyle garden with rare cypress trees still rooted in their original pits, while Switzerland's Obrentfelden Villa revealed a cellar stocked with carbonized hazelnuts and figs, their shapes perfectly preserved by fire. These villas may lack the fame of Pompeii or Hadrian's Tivoli, but they're just as vital, proving that Roman luxury wasn't confined to Italy. It blossomed wherever the empire's influence reached, from the misty hills of Britain to the olive groves of Tunisia. The work of uncovering these villas never truly ends. Every season, fresh excavations rewrite history. A mosaic uncovered in Croatia shifts our understanding of provincial art styles. A drainage pipe in France reveals advanced hydraulic engineering far from Rome's core. And with each discovery, we're reminded that these villas weren't just buildings. They were stages for human stories of ambition and routine, of public spectacle and private grief, all waiting patiently beneath the soil for their chance to speak again. While names like Pompeii and Hadrian's Villa dominate history books, some of Rome's most fascinating domestic treasures hide in plain sight, villas that escape the spotlight yet preserve extraordinary glimpses of ancient life. Take the Villa of Livia near Rome, where stepping into an underground chamber feels like falling into a living dream, walls covered in a continuous fresco of an enchanted garden, its pomegranate trees heavy with fruit and songbirds frozen mid-flight. This wasn't mere decoration, it was a psychological oasis designed to offer the empress respite from palace pressures by surrounding her with perpetual spring. Nearby, the Villa of Diomes in Pompeii reveals a different kind of ingenuity, a private cryptoporticus or underground gallery where wealthy owners strolled during scorching afternoons, their footsteps echoing along walls painted with foam marble to mimic the luxury above. What makes these overlooked sites so compelling are their quirks, features you won't find in grander estates. The Villa of the Vetti's Lararium, a household shrine, hides a tiny erotic fresco behind its altar, blending sacred and scandalous in a way that would shock Victorian excavators. At the Villa of Papary in Oplontes, a perfectly preserved palm tree stands immortalized in a courtyard fresco, its fronds casting painted shadows so precise they shift with the real sunlight's angle. These intimate details, often missed in larger complexes, remind us that Roman domestic life wasn't all imperial spectacle. It was also about whispered jokes between spouses, children playing in courtyards, and private moments of reflection. Preserving these hidden gems poses unique challenges. Unlike the robust marble of public monuments, villa frescoes flake at a breath's touch, their pigments bonded weakly to plaster after millennia. At the Villa of the Papary, moisture from Herculaneum's water table threatens to dissolve carbonized scrolls just as we learn to read them. Even well-intentioned tourism strains delicate sites. the Villa of Livia now limits visitors because human breath alone alters the humidity that keeps its garden frescoes vibrant. Archaeologists wage silent battles with time, using lasers to clean mosaics particle by particle and injecting resins behind peeling paint layers like art conservator surgeons. Yet the greater threat isn't decay but obscurity. Many lesser-known villas lack funding for even basic shelters, leaving mosaics to blister under sun and rain. The villa of the Quintiliae's stunning Nymphaeum crumbles slowly near Rome's busy Appian Way, overlooked by tour buses racing to the Colosseum. In Spain's Caranc, exquisite mosaics of ocean deities lie exposed to the elements, their blues fading under relentless sunlight. These sites tell quieter stories of provincial nobles aping metropolitan fashion, of freedmen flaunting new wealth through imported marbles, narratives that get drowned out by Rome's blockbuster ruins. The race to document these villas before they vanish has sparked ingenious solutions. In Tunisia's Bulla Regia, 3D scans preserve underground peristyle gardens threatened by groundwater rise, while Sicily's Villa del Kaisale employs climate-controlled walkways to protect its famed mosaics from footfall and humidity. Citizen science projects now crowdsource fresco restoration, allowing armchair archaeologists to virtually reassemble painted fragments from uploaded digs. Perhaps most moving are the local caretakers like the third-generation guardian of the Villa of Diomes who recounts childhood games among its ruins, bridging ancient stones with living memory. These overlooked villas offer something rare, an unfiltered lens into daily Roman life, untouched by the grand narratives of emperors and conquests. Walking their halls, you don't just see history, you feel the imprint of ordinary dreams, the merchant who commissioned a mosaic of his first ship, the matron who planted herbs outside her kitchen, the child who scratched a hopscotch grid into courtyard plaster. Their survival whispers an urgent truth that every villa, no matter how small, is a palimpsest of human stories waiting to be read before time turns the final page. The battle to preserve Roman villas is a race against time, where every raindrop, tourist footstep, and passing decade chips away at irreplaceable history. These ancient marvels face threats from all sides: acid rain dissolving delicate frescoes, invasive plant roots cracking mosaic floors, even the gentle pressure of humidity warping wooden supports that have held firm for centuries. At Pompeii's Villa of the Mysteries, conservators wage a nightly war against microclimates. Morning dew seeping into porous plaster can trigger salt crystallization, causing vibrant pigments to flake away like ancient confetti. Meanwhile, at Hadrian's villa, the very pigeons that roost among imperial columns deposit corrosive droppings that eat into marble as effectively as any barbarian horde. Modern conservation walks a razor's edge between intervention and authenticity. Take the stunning frescoes in Livia's dining room. When restorers painstakingly removed centuries of grime, they faced a dilemma. Should they fill in missing sections to match the original vibrant garden scenes, or leave the gaps as honest scars of time? The team chose a third path, projecting digital reconstructions onto the damaged areas during tours, allowing visitors to toggle between the as found and as painted views with a tap of their phones. This marriage of technology and archaeology offers a blueprint for the future, preserving the integrity of the original while resurrecting its splendor virtually. Beneath the Mediterranean sun, another quiet revolution unfolds. At Sicily's Villa Romana del Kaisale, drones equipped with multispectral cameras map minute cracks in mosaics invisible to the naked eye, while moisture sensors embedded in walls send real-time alerts to conservators' tablets. In Spain's La Olmeda, a cutting-edge microclimate system mimics ancient ventilation patterns, using algorithms to adjust airflow based on the villa's original orientation to seasonal winds. These aren't just technical feats, they are acts of cultural empathy, using 21st century tools to honor 2,000-year-old craftsmanship, yet some threats defy high-tech solutions. Looting remains a persistent shadow. A single night raid on Tunisia's Bulla Regia stripped a villa of its prized Venus mosaic, leaving behind only ghostly mortar outlines. Legal protections often crumble before the black market's demand, forcing archaeologists to employ subterfuge. At a recently discovered villa in Portugal, researchers secretly reburied an intact mosaic of Oceanus after documentation, leaving false markers to divert treasure hunters while they secured funding for proper excavation. The heartbreak is palpable when a farmer's plow or a developer's bulldozer inadvertently shatters a hidden villa. Every loss is a library of history reduced to fragments. The most inspiring preservation stories often come from unlikely champions. In a small Libyan village, residents formed a human chain to shield their local Roman villa from artillery fire during unrest, covering mosaics with sandbags woven from traditional textiles. School children in southern France adopted their pet villa, raising funds through bake sales to conserve its crumbling nymphaeum. These grassroots efforts prove that protecting these sites isn't just about conserving the past, it's about nurturing living connections across generations. Looking ahead, digital immortality may offer the ultimate safeguard. Projects like the Virtual Villa Initiative use laser scanning to create millimeter-perfect 3D models, preserving entire estates in binary code. At the University of Kentucky, researchers are experimenting with AI that can predict structural failures in ancient masonry months before they occur, buying precious time for interventions. Yet for all these innovations, the true magic happens when a visitor stands where a Roman noble once did, tracing the same sun-warmed column with their fingertips. That tangible connection, the whisper of time collapsing, is what makes the fight to save these villas not just worthwhile, but essential. Now, let's step beyond the archaeologists' tools and conservators' labs to experience these spaces as their original inhabitants did, not as frozen relics, but as vibrant homes alive with laughter, intrigue, and the messy, glorious business of daily living. Dawn in a Roman villa began not with blaring alarms, but with the gentle murmur of slaves preparing the day's first rituals. As sunlight crept through lattice windows, the household stirred to life, oil lamps flickering in corridors, the scent of baking bread drifting from clay ovens, and the distant splash of water filling the bath. For the patrician owner, the morning unfolded with calculated leisure. A personal attendant, known as the cubicularius, would arrive with a brass basin of rosewater for washing hands and face, followed by the meticulous draping of a freshly laundered toga, its intricate folds signaling status to anyone who crossed his path. Meanwhile, in the villa's heart, the atrium buzzed with activity. Clients lined up for the salutatio, the morning greeting ritual where favors were requested and alliances reinforced. A senator might receive petitions while reclining on a cushioned chair, his signet ring poised to seal wax tablets with decisions that could alter fortunes. The baths weren't just for cleansing, they were a social symphony. By mid-morning, the master would progress through the villa's heated chambers, starting with the frigidarium's invigorating plunge. In the steam-filled caldarium, enslaved masseurs worked strained muscles with scented oils as business discussions unfolded between splashes and scrubs. The bath's acoustics carried whispers perfectly, making them ideal for discreet negotiations. Meanwhile, the villa's kitchens operated like a military campaign. Cooks orchestrated meals with imported spices from as far as India, while pastry chefs molded honeyed desserts into shapes of mythical beasts. every dish was a performance: peacocks roasted and re-feathered to appear alive on silver platters, or dormice glazed with dates in a playful nod to rustic fare turned decadent. Afternoons blurred the lines between work and pleasure. In the tablinum, the owner reviewed estate accounts on wax tablets while secretaries transcribed correspondence. A steward might present samples of newly harvested olives or report on the latest grape yields from distant vineyards. Yet even business had an air of theatre. Important meetings often occurred in the garden peristyle, where the splashing of fountains masked confidential talk. For wealthier women, this time might involve receiving friends in the gynaeceum, a private suite where they dictated letters, supervised weaving projects, or indulged in cosmetic rituals using crushed snail shells for blush and crocodile dung for face masks. As shadows lengthened, the villa transformed into a stage for convivium, the evening feast that was equal parts banquet and power play. Guests reclined on couches arranged by rank, their fingers dipping into dishes seasoned with garum while enslaved musicians strummed lyres. Between courses, acrobats tumbled across mosaic floors and poets recited verses composed to flatter the host. The wine flowed freely, mixed with seawater for authenticity, though the smartest drinkers kept a vomitorium vessel nearby for discreet relief. Long after the last course, the party might migrate to the library for philosophical debates or to an open courtyard where starlight and torchlight mingled. Yet behind this curated luxury pulsed an invisible engine of enslaved labor. From the silent figure who replenished wine cups without eye contact to the pedagogues tutoring children in Greek grammar, hundreds of unseen hands sustained the villa's rhythm. Their quarters, cramped, windowless cells near the kitchen, stood in stark contrast to the marble halls they maintained. This duality captures the essence of Roman villas, a breathtaking artistry built on unspoken hierarchies, where every graceful fresco and bubbling fountain existed because of lives spent in service. As the oil lamps burned low and night embraced the villa, its spiritual dimensions emerged. Household shrines flickered with offerings to Lares, the protective spirits of the home, while ancestral masks watched from shadowed alcoves. In these quiet hours, the villa was no longer just a display of wealth. It became a sacred space where the living and the dead, the human and the divine, moved through the same colonnaded halls. Hidden in plain sight among the bustling villas were sacred spaces pulsing with quiet devotion, the Leraria, or household shrines, where Rome's elite communed with ancestors and gods alike. Picture a niche tucked beside the kitchen, its walls painted with twin Lares, those protective spirits depicted as youthful dancers holding drinking horns. Below them, a small altar bore the marks of daily offerings. A pinch of salt spilled during morning prayers, wax from votive candles melted into abstract patterns. These weren't mere decorations, they were the spiritual heartbeat of the home, where even the most powerful senator might kneel to honor the family's genii, the divine essence passed through generations. Some villas took this reverence to grander scales. The Villa of the Mysteries boasted a dedicated Caesalum, a miniature temple where frescoes of bacchantes suggested private Dionysian rites. At Hadrian's Tivoli estate, a replica of the Athenian temple of Aphrodite stood among the gardens, its marble steps leading to an altar where only imperial hands could place offerings. These spaces reveal a fascinating duality, public displays of piety coexisting with intimate, almost secretive worship. A Lerarium near the kitchen might receive humble daily libations of wine, while a private temple hosted elaborate ceremonies on festival days, complete with hired priests and sacrificial animals. The rituals performed here bridged past and present. During the Parentalia festival, families placed garlands on ancestral masks displayed in the atrium, whispering names of long-dead relatives into the stillness. At meal times, the first morsel was often cast into the hearth fire as an offering to Vesta, goddess of the hearth. Even the architecture reflected this sacred contract. Many villas aligned their main doors to face east, welcoming the dawn's first light as a blessing from Apollo. What's often overlooked is how these spaces also served as social anchors. The lararium wasn't just for the family. Enslaved members of the household might leave offerings to their own deities there, creating a quiet tapestry of multicultural faith. Archaeologists have found traces of Isis worship alongside traditional Roman gods in Pompeian villas, and Hebrew inscriptions hidden beneath floor tiles in Ostia's seaside estates. This spiritual fluidity mirrored Rome itself, an empire that absorbed foreign gods as readily as it did conquered territories. Now, shift your gaze from the divine to the decidedly earthly, the complex economics that made these villas not just homes but engines of wealth. Behind every marble column and bubbling fountain lay a meticulously calculated system of income and expenditure, where agricultural yields and political alliances were weighed as carefully as the gold used to gild a statue's robes. Owning a Roman villa wasn't just about taste, it was an extreme financial flex, requiring the kind of wealth that would make modern billionaires blink. The initial construction alone could bankrupt all but the most powerful families, with costs spiraling from foundation to frescoes. Take the marble columns adorning a typical villa's atrium, each one quarried in distant Carrara, transported by ox cart to the nearest port, shipped across stormy seas, then dragged inland by teams of laborers. The price tag, equivalent to feeding a modest household for years, and that was just the raw stone before artisans began carving it into fluted masterpieces. Even the mortar between bricks had luxury tacks mixed with crushed terracotta for durability and tinted with imported pigments to match the owner's aesthetic whims. But materials were just the opening act. The real expense came from the army of specialized laborers, architects from Greece, mosaicists from Syria, fresco painters trained in Alexandria's finest workshops. These weren't anonymous workers but celebrated craftsmen who commanded premium fees. A top-tier mosaicist could charge per tessera laid, turning intricate mythological scenes into budgets that rivaled military campaigns. The infamous Alexander mosaic from Pompey's House of the Faun likely cost more than the annual payroll of an entire legion. Even the enslaved workforce represented a major investment. Skilled cooks, scribes, and horticulturists were purchased at markets for sums that could buy prime farmland. Where did this river of wealth originate? For most elite villa owners, the answer flowed from three tributaries: land, politics, and commerce. Agricultural estates latifundia stretched across provinces, their wheat fields, olive groves, and vineyards generating continuous income. Pliny the Younger's letters boast of one estate yielding 30,000 sesterces annually just from its fig trees. Political appointments brought spoils too. Governors returning from abroad arrived with shiploads of looted art and bulging purses from questionable taxation practices. Then there were the merchant princes, like the freedman Trimalchio, immortalized in Petronius Satyricon, who flaunted villas funded by shipping empires moving Egyptian grain or Spanish silver. Maintenance bled fortunes year after year. Those stunning frescoes required regular touch-ups from specialized painters, while marble floors needed polishing with rare abrasives from Nubia. Gardens demanded teams of topiarii to sculpt hedges into fantastical shapes, and the hypocaust's furnaces consumed forests of firewood. Even water came at a premium. Aristocrats paid hefty fees to tap into municipal aqueducts, with illegal siphons leading to infamous court battles. Poet Martial snidely remarked that some villa owners could measure their wealth by the gallons flowing through their pipes. The economics reveal villas as living balance sheets. Every gilded ceiling and heated bath wasn't just decoration but a calculated display of connections, the Carrara marble proving quarry contracts with imperial suppliers, the Egyptian obelisks in gardens signaling trade alliances, the Greek library scrolls demonstrating cultural capital. This was wealth made visible, a tangible ledger where visitors could tally a host's influence just by counting the exotic materials underfoot. Now, shift perspective from the accountant's scrolls to the artist's brushes, because understanding these staggering costs makes the villa's decorative details even more astonishing. When every brushstroke carried the weight of a soldier's annual wages, no pigment was chosen lightly, no mosaic pattern left to chance. The walls of Roman villas didn't just enclose space, they breathed with life, thanks to frescoes that transformed plaster into portals to fantastical realms. Picture running your fingers along a villa's sun-warmed wall, tracing the delicate brushstrokes of a woodland nymph or the dramatic folds of a hero's cloak. These weren't mere decorations, they were immersive narratives, wrapping rooms in stories that shifted with the light. Artists worked swiftly on fresh, damp plaster, a technique called buon fresco, locking pigments into the walls so deeply that their brilliance endured for millennia. The famous Villa of Livia's garden room is a masterclass in this illusionism, where pomegranates seem to sway in an eternal breeze and birds perch on painted branches so lifelike, you'd swear you heard their songs. What made these murals extraordinary was their versatility. One chamber might feature a sweeping mythological battle, while the next offered trompe l'oeil windows, looking out onto imagined seascapes or bustling city squares. In the Villa of the Mysteries, the Dionysiac frieze doesn't just adorn the wall, it engulfs visitors in its ritual frenzy, the figure's eyes following you around the room like silent participants in an ancient drama. Even domestic scenes held layers of meaning. A simple still life of fruit and glassware wasn't just pretty, it whispered of abundance and refined taste, while erotic vignettes hidden in private quarters blended titillation with fertility symbolism. The colors alone were a testament to Roman ingenuity. Cinnabar red from Spanish mines, Egyptian blue ground from precious lapis lazuli, and vivid greens made by suspending copper flakes in vinegar. These pigments traveled thousands of miles to grace elite walls. At Pompeii's House of the Vetii, the famous Red Room owes its intensity to a rare technique of polishing the painted surface with marble rollers, creating a sheen that still glows like embers. Yet for all their splendor, these works were surprisingly ephemeral in intent. Fashion-conscious owners frequently repainted rooms, burying masterpieces under fresh plaster as casually as we might swap wallpaper. Behind every brushstroke lay an army of enslaved artisans, the unsung hands who mixed pigments, prepared plaster, and even executed designs under the supervision of Greek masters. While famous painters like Famulus signed their work proudly in gold dust letters, the laborers who scaffolded ceilings or ground pigments for hours left no signatures. Some frescoes even preserve their fingerprints, ghostly marks pressed into wet plaster while steadying a ladder. These anonymous artists came from across the empire, Syrians famed for their ultramarine blues, Egyptians skilled in miniature detail, Gauls whose floral motifs betrayed their Celtic roots. Their forced labor created beauty that outlived empires, yet their stories were often erased as thoroughly as the walls they whitewashed for the next patron's whim. This tension between artistry and servitude reveals the brutal engine behind Roman aesthetics. The same villa owner who wept at a fresco of Andromache mourning Hector might whip an enslaved painter for smudging a corner. Training was brutal. Apprentices learned by copying Greek masterpieces until their hands cramped, with mistakes punished by reduced rations. Yet some slaves turned their skills into leverage, Graffiti in a Pompeian bakery boasts of a painter who bought his freedom with portraits so flattering, his patron granted him citizenship. For every such triumph, countless others faded into the mortar they mixed, their contributions as invisible as the oxblood binder holding their pigments together. Now step back from these vibrant walls to consider the living, breathing workforce that sustained the villa's entire ecosystem. Beyond the artists, hundreds of enslaved people moved through these halls, cooking, cleaning, farming, and dying to uphold the illusion of effortless luxury. Their unseen labor made the frescoes possible, just as the frescoes erased their presence, painting over reality with fantasies of a world where gods cavorted and mortals lounged, forever free from toil. Behind every glittering mosaic and perfumed banquet hall pulsed an invisible workforce, enslaved men, women, and children whose labor sustained the villa's illusion of effortless luxury. Imagine the pre-dawn darkness of the kitchen where a slave from Gaul kneaded dough for the day's bread, her arms burning as she worked by the glow of embers. Nearby, a teenage boy from Syria trimmed wicks on bronze lamps, his fingers blackened by soot. These weren't just servants, they were experts gardeners who understood the precise angle to prune grapevines, scribes who could recite Homer from memory, bath attendants trained to gauge water temperature by touch. The villa's heartbeat depended on their skills, yet their presence faded into the background like the hum of hypocaust pipes beneath marble floors. The hierarchy among the enslaved was as rigid as Roman society itself. At the top stood the villicus, the estate manager who often wielded more practical power than the absent owner. This was frequently a trusted slave educated in accounting and agriculture, capable of negotiating crop prices or disciplining field workers. Beneath him worked specialists, the Greek tutor drilling the master's children in rhetoric, the Cappadocian chef who could debone a peacock without marring its gilded feathers, the teams of stokers who maintained hypocaust fires with military precision. Lowest in rank were the rural slaves toiling in vineyards or quarries, their lives measured in calluses and sunburnt skin. What's often overlooked is how slavery shaped the villa's very architecture. Narrow service corridors snaked behind grand reception rooms, allowing slaves to replenish wine cups without crossing a guest sight line. The cubicles near kitchens weren't just sleeping quarters. Their thick walls muffled nighttime coughs and cries that might disturb the family. Even decorative elements served dual purposes. Lattice screens in gardens provided privacy for strolling elites while concealing attendants ready with chilled towels or spiced wine. The psychological toll of this system reveals itself in heartbreaking traces. At the Villa of the Papary, archaeologists found a child's clay doll hidden beneath floorboards, perhaps the secret treasure of an enslaved playmate to the owner's daughter. In Pompey's House of the Menander, a fresco depicts a young slave boy holding his master's shoes, his face bearing an expression that flickers between obedience and exhaustion. These fragments remind us that behind the inventory lists recording slaves as tools with voices, there were real people, individuals who whispered lullabies in forgotten languages, stole moments of rest in sunlit courtyards, and dreamed of freedom while polishing their owner's silver. Some managed to carve out agency within oppression. Skilled slaves could earn small wages through side work, eventually buying their freedom. A fresco in a Pompeian tavern shows former slaves toasting their success, their new citizen rings gleaming. Others resisted subtly. Cooks might over-season dishes, gardeners let prized roses wither, accountants misplaced debt records. The graffiti scrawled on a Herculaneum wall says it all. The master's wine is mine by moonlight. This unspoken reliance on enslaved labor forced uncomfortable contradictions. The same patrician who quoted Stoic philosophy about universal brotherhood might order a slave beaten for chipping a glass. Wealthy matrons who wept at tragedies about captive princesses thought nothing of separating enslaved mothers from children at market. The villa's beauty was built on this tension between the ideals of civilization and the brutality required to sustain it. Now shift your gaze to the walls that protected these complexes. Just as slaves formed the human shield maintaining villa life, physical fortifications guarded against external threats because luxury on this scale required not just invisible labor but visible defenses. Beneath their serene facades, Roman villas often concealed layers of defense proof that even paradise required protection. While we imagine these estates as idyllic retreats, their walls sometimes whispered of quieter anxieties. In the rolling countryside beyond Rome's secure heart, rural villas bristled with subtle fortifications. High perimeter walls, often disguised behind climbing vines or decorative trellises, offered both privacy and protection. Watchtowers, cleverly integrated into garden structures or disguised as belvederes, provided vantage points to scan approaching roads. Some estates even featured hidden escape tunnels, their entrances concealed behind false cabinets in the wine cellar or beneath mosaic floors. The villa of the Valusii near Rome boasted an outer wall with an unusual double thickness. Archaeologists later discovered its hollow core could be filled with rubble in times of threat, transforming it into an impenetrable barrier. Urban villas faced different dangers. Though nestled within city walls, their wealth made them targets for theft or political violence. Pompeii's House of the Faun included an ingenious security feature, a vestibule lined with benches where visitors could be scrutinized by guards before gaining access to the inner courtyard. Bronze grilles over ground floor windows, now preserved in the ash, reveal how beauty and deterrence intertwined. Even water features served dual purposes. The reflective pools in atriums weren't just decorative. Their still surfaces exposed approaching intruders through subtle ripples. The contrast between urban and rural defenses speaks volumes. Country estates prioritized perimeter security, their sprawling layouts incorporating natural barriers like steep terraces or artificial moats disguised as ornamental ponds. At Hadrian's villa, the so-called maritime theater wasn't just a retreat. Its circular moat and retractable bridge created an island redoubt where the emperor could withdraw during unrest. Meanwhile, city villas focused on controlling access. The House of the Vetii in Pompeii had no main door handle on the outside. Entry required knocking and identification, a system not unlike modern intercoms. These precautions weren't paranoia but pragmatism. In Sicily's volatile countryside, the Villa Romana del Kaisale featured barracks-like quarters for armed estate workers. Provincial villas often resembled fortified compounds like Britain's Fishbourne Palace, where ditches and palisades predated its later luxury. Even decorative elements played roles. Statues of fierce animals near gates served as psychological deterrents, while labyrinthine garden paths confused unfamiliar visitors. What emerges is a nuanced portrait of Roman life, where the pursuit of beauty coexisted with shrewd calculations. The same aristocrats who commissioned delicate frescoes also invested in iron-reinforced doors. Gardens might bloom with roses, but their perimeter hedges concealed thorny blackberry brambles to discourage climbers. This duality captures the essence of the Roman elite, cultured yet cautious, ever mindful that the peace enabling their luxury was more fragile than their marble floors. Now consider how these security measures adapted to their environments. Coastal villas like those at Baiae incorporated sea cliffs as natural barriers, while desert estates in North Africa used high windowless walls to deflect both bandits and scorching winds. The variations reveal a deeper truth. Roman villas weren't just standardized blueprints but thoughtful responses to their landscapes and the unique risks they faced. The ultimate testament to their success, many villas' defensive features were never used. Their mere presence provided enough deterrence, allowing generations to live undisturbed amidst their curated splendors until time, not invaders, finally breached their walls. Urban villas and their rural counterparts were like two siblings raised in the same family yet shaped by entirely different worlds. In the heart of Rome's bustling cities, urban villas stood as compact powerhouses of social influence, their facades pressed shoulder to shoulder with shops and temples. These residences prioritized access over acreage, steeped in the energy of the forum's debates and the pulse of political intrigue. Picture a senator's villa wedged into the Palatine Hill, its modest footprint belying its significance. Though its gardens might be limited to a rooftop oasis or a slender peristyle courtyard, every inch was optimized. The walls dripped with frescoes of mythological scenes, not just for beauty but to signal the owner's erudition to visiting clients. Proximity to the Senate meant morning salutatio rituals could transition seamlessly into afternoon baths at the nearby Aqua Virgo, blending business with pleasure in a way only city life allowed. Yet step beyond Rome's walls and the villa transformed. Rural estates sprawled like miniature kingdoms, their boundaries stretching to horizons dotted with olive groves and wheat fields. Here, space was the ultimate luxury. The Villa dei Papary near Herculaneum exemplified this, a seaside paradise where colonnades framed uninterrupted views of the Bay of Naples, and libraries held scrolls far from the city's distractions. Self-sufficiency was the rural villa's hallmark. Fish ponds teemed with mullet, vineyards yielded private vintages, and sprawling granaries ensured harvests could weather political storms. While urban villas relied on the city's aqueducts, country estates boasted intricate well systems and rainwater cisterns, turning isolation into independence. The differences extended to social rhythms. An urban villa thrived on controlled chaos, its triclinium hosting nightly dinners where poets, politicians, and foreign dignitaries mingled under lamplight. In contrast, rural villas curated tranquility. Pliny the Younger described his Laurentine villa as a retreat where the mind is refreshed by the solitude, with days spent writing in sun-drenched libraries or strolling terraced gardens designed for introspection. Even their architectural bones diverged. Urban villas often rose vertically, with multi-story atriums maximizing limited plots, while rural designs spread horizontally, embracing the landscape with open verandas and strategically placed nymphea to catch cooling breezes. But perhaps the most striking contrast lay in their vulnerabilities. Urban villas faced the whims of mobs and fires, their treasures always one riot away from ruin. Rural estates, though safer from political upheaval, battled nature's fickleness. Droughts could wither crops, and bandits lurked on distant roads. Each type demanded different defenses. Urban owners invested in thick doors and loyal doormen, while country aristocrats maintained private militias to patrol their vast holdings. This duality reveals the Roman genius for adaptation. Whether squeezed into a noisy metropolis or commanding silent hillsides, villas flexed to serve their owners' needs without sacrificing an ounce of grandeur. They weren't just homes, they were chameleons, changing colors to match their surroundings while remaining unmistakably Roman at the core. Now, consider how these contrasts played out in the most personal of spaces, the sleeping quarters where city noise gave way to country quiet, and where the villa's true character whispered through every detail. The urban cubiculum might feature street-facing windows shuttered against night revelers, its walls painted with busy scenes to compensate for the lack of real vistas. Meanwhile, rural bedrooms opened onto private gardens, their frescoes echoing the tranquility outside with soft seascapes or dreamy woodland glades. Even the air carried different scents, city chambers perfumed by incense to mask urban odors, while country rooms breathed in the natural fragrance of lavender fields or salt-sprayed cliffs. The genius of Roman architecture wasn't just in building for location, it was in crafting spaces that shaped how life unfolded within them. Urban villas turned constraints into virtues, using clever sightlines to make cramped quarters feel expansive. Rural estates did the opposite, employing winding garden paths and staggered buildings to prevent their vastness from feeling empty. Both approaches shared one unshakable goal: to remind everyone who crossed their thresholds that here, human ingenuity had tamed both stone and society. And yet, for all we've uncovered about these villas, some mysteries refuse to surrender their secrets. Why did certain rooms in Pompeii's urban villas remain locked even during the eruption? What rituals unfolded in the hidden underground chambers of rural estates like Hadrian's? The answers lie just beyond our grasp, buried in the silent language of unearthed artifacts and half-decoded frescoes. Perhaps that's the final lesson these homes teach, that true understanding, like the perfect villa, balances what's revealed with what remains tantalizingly out of view. Even after centuries of excavation and study, Roman villas cling stubbornly to their secrets, whispering riddles through half-collapsed walls and tantalizing archaeologists with fragments of untold stories. Take the enigmatic Room of the Mysteries in Hadrian's villa, where a domed chamber with no visible entrance puzzles experts to this day. Some theorize it was a private meditation space, its access hidden beneath a rotating floor mechanism long since decayed. Others suggest it held sacred objects, its isolation protecting them from profane eyes. The truth, it remains one of antiquity's most beguiling locked room mysteries. Then there are the coded messages etched into villa walls, not just the well-known graffiti, but deliberate symbols whose meanings have slipped through time's fingers. At the Villa of the Quintilii near Rome, a series of bronze plaques bear inscriptions in a cipher that combines Greek letters and Egyptian hieroglyphs. Was this the owner's private code for inventory, a mystical incantation, or perhaps, as one daring scholar proposes, an early form of diplomatic encryption used by the villa's politically connected owners? The debate rages on, with each new theory adding layers to the puzzle. Hidden chambers continue to surface in unexpected places. Ground-penetrating radar recently revealed a network of tunnels beneath Sicily's Villa Romana del Kaisale, their purpose as unclear as their winding path. One shaft leads to a sealed room containing nothing but a single bronze chair and scattered owl bones, an eerie tableau that has inspired everything from theories about clandestine religious rites to wild speculation about ancient think tanks where philosophers gathered in literal darkness. The most plausible explanation might be the simplest: storage for valuables during turbulent times. But without written records, even practicality becomes conjecture. Perhaps most intriguing are the mistakes, architectural quirks that defy explanation. Why does the villa of the Papary's library contain a false door leading to a solid wall? What purpose did the rotating platform in the villa of the Volusiai's dining room serve beyond theatrical flair? Even the orientation of certain villas contradicts Roman norms. The Villa dei Misteri in Pompeii aligns not with the sun's path but with the summit of Vesuvius, suggesting a spiritual connection to the mountain that would later consume it. These unanswered questions aren't just academic exercises, they're what keep the study of Roman villas thrillingly alive. Every unsolved riddle invites us to look closer, to question assumptions, and to marvel at how much we still don't understand about daily life 2,000 years ago. The villas refuse to be fully known, and that's precisely what makes them endlessly fascinating. They remind us that history isn't a puzzle to be solved, but a conversation across centuries, one where we're still learning how to listen. As we close this journey through 32 magnificent villas, their stories linger like the scent of citrus in a sun-warmed peristyle. We've walked mosaic floors where emperors schemed, relaxed in baths where poets debated, and marveled at frescoes that turned walls into windows to other worlds. These homes were more than architecture, they were stages for humanity's timeless dramas of power, creativity, and the eternal search for beauty. Though the villas themselves now stand in ruins, their lessons about ingenuity, cultural exchange, and the art of living well remain vibrantly relevant. They challenge us to consider what future generations might uncover from our own homes, and what mysteries we might leave behind for the archaeologists of tomorrow to ponder. From their breathtaking mosaics to their ingenious engineering, Roman villas were masterpieces of luxury and innovation, testaments to a civilization that turned everyday living into high art. These weren't just homes, they were stages where power played out under frescoed ceilings, where the rhythms of politics, philosophy, and pleasure intertwined in sun-dappled courtyards. What makes them truly remarkable isn't merely their scale or opulence, but how they reveal the Roman genius for blending beauty with purpose. Those heated floors weren't just cozy, they showcased mastery over fire and water. The Trompe l'oeil frescoes didn't just dazzle, they transformed cramped rooms into boundless imaginary landscapes. Even the humblest villa kitchens hid feats of engineering that wouldn't be matched for centuries. But beyond the marble and mortar, these villas whisper intimate stories. The child's toy forgotten in a corner, the scribbled shopping list on a wax tablet, the worn step where generations paused to adjust their sandals. They remind us that history isn't just about emperors and armies, but about people who laughed over shared meals, debated in garden shade, and sought comfort after long days. The villa's true legacy lies in this duality. They were both grand political statements and deeply personal spaces, where the universal human desire for beauty and belonging found exquisite expression. As we step back from these ruins, let's not see them as relics frozen in time, but as invitations to keep questioning. What secrets still lie buried beneath vineyard-covered foundations? What forgotten techniques might inspire sustainable architecture today? The conversation between past and present never truly ends. It simply waits for curious minds to listen. If these villas have sparked your imagination, share which details captivated you most in the comments. Was it the hypnotic symmetry of a peristyle garden, the cleverness of an aqueduct-fed fountain, or perhaps the quiet resilience of a slave story pieced together from pottery shards and floor grooves? Your curiosity keeps history alive, so whether you're planning a pilgrimage to Pompeii's ruins or simply marveling at these innovations from your screen, remember every mosaic tessera, every brick in a hypocaust, every faded fresco is a fragment of a larger human story, one that continues to unfold with each new discovery. Until our next adventure through time, keep looking for the extraordinary hidden in the ordinary. After all, the past isn't a closed book, it's an open door waiting for you